has begun. Vampires fought back in super real 3D.
Color. I am going to color grade a simple interview shot that I have, but this is a quick little sit-in with me to see how I do it. I do use some plugins. I use the Red Giant suite. That's really the only plugin that I use inside of Premiere, but I do color grade all of my projects inside of Premiere. I do some really extreme grades for music videos. I do some really extreme grades for things like Trans Am with the car commercials and stuff like that. This is a straight interview shot. This is a very common scenario that you guys are going to be in if you're making videos for money. You're going to be doing interviews for people. This is it. So here's what I do. Here's how I don't go to Resolve. I don't even want to get in the debate of using Resolve. Look, the bottom line is I've been using Premiere for 20 plus years. I'm going to keep using Premiere. I have a system that keeps me inside of Premiere almost the entire time. I say almost because sometimes I'll go to After Effects if I need to do something really zany, and the same would be the case if you were in Resolve and you need to do something that involved a certain level of effects. You'd have to go to After Effects. In this case, we're just going to do this standard issue thing here. Yes, like I said, I do use plugins. I use the Red Giant suite, and I love the Red Giant suite. It is one of the powerhouse things that has been able to enable me to stay inside of Premiere and do the color grading. That plus the motion tracking masks that are available via using, well, Adobe Premiere, they offer that on all their effects, but ever since they implemented Lumetri and the motion tracking, it's been fine. I mean, it's just gotten better and better in that regard. So here's how I stay inside of Premiere. We've got our shot. I find a still frame that's sharp, that there's not motion blur on. I just want to be able to know that what's in focus. So should I choose to sharpen, I know that I'm not sharpening a in the middle of moving, subject motion blur thing. I've reframed this slightly. It was a little crooked when I set it up, so that's the reframing size. That's the only thing I've done to this so far. This is filmed on the Canon R5C in XF AVC and C-Log 3. If you film in RAW, you actually have the option for C-Log 2. But to be honest with you, as nice as C-Log 2 sounds with its extra dynamic range that it potentially offers, I generally like the looks that I'm achieving better with the C-Log 3 anyway. So it's not bad filming an XFAVC on an interview setup like this, especially if it's, this is a data hog whenever you are actually doing interviews. You're going to run these 15 minutes, 25 minutes. I have some interviews that are an hour, depending, like for Trans Am, we go way down the rabbit hole. So anyway, here's what we got. Let's go ahead and drop on the first thing that I do, which is in general, Colorista 5. Now you could do the same thing using just Lumetri. For whatever reason, I get better results with Colorista, and I'm just going to do what I do, guys. If you want to stick with just Lumetri, I've done it. I just never quite get the end polished thing that I end up liking as much as when I use the Red Giant stuff. In particular, once I start implementing a little bit of looks, and then another little secret sauce thing that I'm going to show you that I use from their suite. I have the Red Giant Complete. That's the package that I have. I pay, at this time of recording, it's $600 a year. I know that seems like a lot, but it offers so many things at the VFX suite. That's one of the things we're going to use in here. And the universe, and it's just, there's really cool stuff in it, guys. If you're making money doing this, I just consider off the top of the gate, there's certain things I pay for every year. Adobe's one of them. Red Giant's one of them. It just gets me other things that I need. I'm going to go ahead and switch this control response to log, because that is log right here. And I'm going to go ahead and create some contrast and add some color. That's really my first starting point. Now, you can see the windows blowing out. I'm not worried about that right now. I can mask that to an extent. I just want to get generally where I want the person to be, and I'll deal with everything else from there. So maybe that much contrast. Let's start putting a little bit of color in. This is our natural look. Okay, now we're going to mess with the midtones a little bit after I've seen some color. Something about, there's a good starting point. And what I'm doing is I'm intentionally leaving a little bit, I actually don't want the contrast to be too strong out of the gate, because I do want to use some LUTs. Now when it comes to LUTs, guys, man, I've got so many. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work off of one that's free, that you guys can get. It's not mine. It's if you go to artlist.com, they give you, I don't have any affiliation with them, but I do. They are one of the things I pay for each year. for music, and actually I'm on the Art Grid as well for stock footage too. So I know I have a lot of paid stuff. But anyway, this is free, guys. You can just go there and give them an email address and you get all this free stuff. And their LUT pack is really good. I still use it over many other LUTs that I paid for. And one of my favorite ones is this Master 2. It comes in this cinema movie collection. It's like 20 LUTs or something. And it says what movie it's emulating. This is what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Master. Now, out of the gate, I love that the power intensity slider is right here in Lumetri, so I can adjust how intense it is. I usually start with a LUT somewhere around 50% if I'm going to want to use that as part of my look. Once I do that, then I'll reassess my contrast and color saturation. Right now, to me, the blacks are a little dark, and obviously this window is blown out. I'm going to fix the window in a second. I'm going to do that last, even you'll see. So let's go ahead and bring the contrast, these shadows up just a little bit. Let's bump around with this. You have shadow options, which is a little different than messing with just the blacks here in the shadow on the 3 color wheels, but there's a shadow and highlight. In fact, check this out, this highlight region right here. I'm jumping ahead. Yeah. If I bring that down, look at how good this highlight control inside of Colorista is definitely better than the Lumetri one. It's much more accurate. See how little it's actually affecting her skin? It's like barely touching her skin. It's really just addressing the brightness back there. Now that blowout back there is actually partially intentional. I put a light out there. That's not me just dealing with daylight. I know I'm crazy, but I did it because I really liked I wanted the room to feel naturally lit up more, and we're going to get that vibe happening more with an in polishing trick that I do. So I did go ahead and bring down the highlights quite a bit here just because I saw it. It's on the slider. It just worked out of the gate to get it down a bit. That's good. Now we're going to bring these shadows up a little bit, and now I can increase the intensity of my master LUT. And then I do sometimes use stuff right here in Lumetri as well. So I'm going to go over here on my Lumetri basics, and I want to bring up the blacks just a little bit. Just a hair. Cool. Now these are our first basic ones across the entire footage like this. There's one more thing I like to do as my part of my base, and then I'll start making fine-tune adjustments after this. I go to Looks, which is Red Giant, and I'm going to put an instance on there. And one of the ones that I really like to use is there's a preset in here called Tension, Classic Tension. All right, now this has a lot of contrast to it. I usually take the pop off, or even sometimes put it at negative 0.5 or negative 1. It softens the skin a bit, and it can be a little bit flattering for the subject. This, by default, it is a blur, kind of really shapes the, brings the attention to the person. I like having it there, but I always think it's too dramatic out of the gate. By bringing the quality up to 10, that lessens the intensity of it. Blur size, I bring that down too. So it's super subtle if I turn that on and off. It's subtle. It gets stronger towards the edges. Now, one thing that is annoying about this is you can see it's not making, what I'm looking at is not showing me the other instances of things that I've done. That is a bit of an issue with Looks. I've gotten past it and used to it. The only way around that really is to render the clip with the colors, the base color that you want, and then you would see this. But because those are actual effects that haven't been melted into the footage yet, that's just not the case with this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just start with that as my initial step with it. It's always a bit strong. I want to bring it back down. I bring it down to 0, and then I gradually bring it in. And it just adds a little bit of magic to it. There's just a little bit of magic to it. All right, I think that's a really good base to start off with. And now I'm going to start addressing some specific things. At this point, for me, I like bringing out my little Wacom pen tool, because when it comes to mask drawing, I like using my pen tablet. And I don't have the camera pointed down there to see it, but I am showing you I got the Wacom tablet, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and put an instance of Colorista on here again, and this time I'm going to do some specific exposure control on some stuff. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is trace out her a bit. Now you're thinking, well, she's going to move. I'm like, yeah, she's going to move. but you'd be amazed. Like I can motion track when it moves too much. Right now, I just want to get the general idea of what we got going on. I'm going to go ahead and just create a general feather of that. This was 4K footage. We're just going to start off with somewhere around 240-ish. And now it's just on her. Now I could invert this, but in this case, what I oftentimes do is, well, you'll see. You're just going to see. Why don't we just wait till you see? So check it out. First, I'm going to address her. And I just round off these edges a little bit, just in case. It's not quite so much. Now I'm being pretty specific here. Now, a lot of times I wouldn't do a specific trace around her. I'm doing this really because of the window. This is just a little bit of a weird exposure situation inside this room. So I want to address her completely separate. And I'm going to go ahead and I feel like I want to bring her highlights up just a little bit. There we go. Now she's popping a little bit more. And I want to mess with the midtones just a little bit. That's good. And something really as subtle as that might be all I need to do to her. Let me just play with the contrast for a second. Just the slightest bump, and I'm going to bring this up a little. Boom. So if we turn that off and on, see how she just pops out now? Okay, here's another trick. Look at where I put this Colorista instance. If I put it first. So it's weird, right? Like I did all my base and then I'm going back and putting the first instance of some exposure control on the subject. And the reason is because it's going to affect it differently. Here's if I put it after. See, it's a little bit stronger. It's a little bit, it looks good, but if you think about it, what happens is it looks more obvious. It kind of looks like she's front lit now. If you really look at it, doesn't it look like the light is on her and it's separate from the room? But if I put it back here, it's so subtle. It feels like the exposure in the room is just like, it feels more naturally lit. It's just a little trick, right? It's subtle, but it's there. Okay, now I'm going to make another instance of Colorista. And then I'm going to go on this first instance of Colorista and I'm going to copy the mask. I'm going to click on it and then hit Control C. I'm on Windows. And then I'm going to go to the new instance that has nothing done to it yet. And I'm going to hit Control V and put the mask. Then I'm going to invert the mask. So now if we look at it, everything on the outside is now what I'm going to affect. And I'm going to increase the feather size. I'm going to go to like 450. Start there. And I'm going to expand it just a little bit here. Boom. Okay. Now I'm going to play with colors and highlights and just see what I like. So again, I can address the window totally separate. I want to get this room feeling right. Something about the room feels a little weird. Let's see what I got here. Sometimes I just have to move some stuff around to see what's not jiving for me. It's a little blue for me. I want to kind of increase the... I'm just feeling it out. Might even be the temperature itself. Let me try. Bump there. Pull this back over. Bring the highlights back up. That's feeling pretty good. If we turn that off and on. There it was before. There it is now. Now it feels, to me, this is like almost like completely naturally lit feeling. It's very subtle. Like you can tell that she's got a light on her, but it's very subtle. Just feels warm and inviting. And that window, I could address it. We can play with it for a second, but to be honest, let me see if my thing that I wanted to do at the end does what it's supposed to. And if it does, then I'm just going to let it kind of blow out. Check it out. So I like diffusion a little bit. It softens everybody up. And in fact, really, I should put on, if I always give everybody a little bit of Cosmo. Cosmo is, again, another magic bullet, red giant thing. It's way too strong at first, but you get your color picker. You're going to choose skin tones. It's going to try to change skin on you. If you had accurate skin tones, you don't want that to happen, really. I usually have the automatic skin correction do just like at roughly 10. It's way too smooth. So I'm going to put it at like 5, just for a little hint. And we'll turn that off, on, It's just a little bump. We can actually see how much it's doing here by what it's affecting. You can toggle on your show selection. And we can also jump in here real quick, get a little bit closer if we were going to crop in, because I am going to punch in on this some. And if we turn this off, on, in fact, I might go up to 8. And I kind of just want to get that texture. Let's see here. Yeah. Kind of have to play around with this a little bit to see where it's going to get you what you want. It's not doing too much. Let's bring it back up more. There we go. I think 12's the right number. I like that. See I mean, I hate to do this to anybody. Everybody's got real skin texture, but in general, like the forehead and stuff, it's just going to make it a little bit smoother here. See, it's just a little bit more friendly. And it's very subtle. You can barely tell. And yes, it did soften the image. And that's why after I do that, this is what I do to color grade, guys. I then put Lumetri. Come here, Lumetri. Oh, it's because I have Cosmo typed in here. If you have something in your search bar, none of the drop-down menus will open. So now I'm going to get another instance of Lumetri. I'm going to put this after Cosmo specifically, and I'm going to sharpen it back up a little bit. So it's going to sharpen the smooth skin. I usually do around, on the Canon footage, around 20. Boom! That doesn't look soft at all, man. That looks plenty sharp. That's as sharp as you need it. If I turn that off, on, see that? We can go zoom in, go up here. If we turn it on, boom. Cosmo, see before the Cosmo, and the sharpening. We have that. Get this nice little, all this stuff's subtle, guys, but I promise it makes a difference. You really feel it when it starts playing in motion. So we got that. And as far as these masks go, she was pretty stationary, and I can motion track the sections that she ended up doing. So what I'm going to do is once I create this look, which we're almost done with, I'm going to put this into a separate sequence that I call CC Palette. I have it over here started. And I'm just going to drop it in here and let it live there. And then I'm basically going to just turn all my global effects off and edit like this. Or I might even just leave on just the LUT, and that doesn't slow down my system while I'm editing. But you can see where we started and where we're at now. Let's do one more last little trick. This is what I was talking about. In the VFX suite, there's something called Optical Glow. Again, Red Giant Complete, guys. You're going to be like, what the hell? That looks like crap at first, but check it out. What's I done? See how magical that is? And what's weird about this, I should point this out about the others. Well, here, let me do this first. All right. I leave it on video instead of changing it to log because we've already put so much, all these instances of stuff. It's not log anymore. We've changed it. So this in video, it makes it pop a little bit more. Maybe the size, maybe around 5. And then oftentimes once I drop this on, I might want to bring my exposure back down just a hair while I'm whoopsie. Let's go back to that still frame. Because overall this is too bright. So I'll go to my main colorista and bring down the exposure just the slightest, teeniest bit. And that's pretty darn close. I think the blacks need to come up just a little bit. That's pretty good. And if we turn off this optical glow, boom, boom. See how it feels alive and fresh and clean and fun? I like it. The last thing I would play with is what I do. I just keep tinkering. Let me add one more instance of Colorista. Everything I do with Colorista you could pretty much do with Lumetri, except I just think the controls and results are a little bit better using Colorista. Don't know exactly what voodoo it is that they have in there. But let me try this. See how I zoomed out and I made this giant mask out here. I'm going to feather the heck out of it. And then I'm going to put it back at the top. Actually, I'm going to put it after those two other masks. And then I'm going to just play with the mid-tone, my mid to bright. Oh, I meant to invert it. My bad. Okay, let's just see. I don't know if I want to do this or not. I'm just trying it out. It's just the subtlest touch. I might leave the exposure alone. So let's see what just that little bump of mid is just adding a little teeny shade in a line. And I think what I want to do is shrink the mask a little bit. So just really going in on her face. And I might even bring this corner on the bottom out a little bit more because I don't want it to give too much shade there, especially the black in her dress. Booyah. I want to play into that window, something like that. Now I can make final fine-tune adjustments in the final edit when I see it stacked side by side, but that is a color grade, guys. That looks pretty good. Ha! That's the sound editing video I made right before making this one. Let me turn this off and hit play. And that's what it looks like in motion. I think she looks pretty good, guys. Look at that. So if we look at what we had before, booyah. Now we've got booyah. So then I'm just going to cut a chunk of that because I don't need to cover the entire thing. Control C, color palette, Control V. That lives there. Now I have her. I do that for if I have a bunch of people interviewed in a project across the span of time. I will put everybody in this color palette, and I'll color code them. And I might, if it comes down to it, I'll even title things. I'll do the same thing with my B-roll footage. If there's locations that were filmed, multiple locations filmed for a single project, once I figure out a color grade with a specific camera for a certain room, I'm going to drop it into my CC palette, and I'll do that as a B-roll CC palette. And I'll have my interview CC palette. So all this stuff I can quickly access as I'm going through the color grades. And again, this is all part of me moving or color grading all inside of Premiere. That's just how I do it. So I can figure this out gradually over the course of the project. And what I like about this is that rather than color grading it all at the end, sometimes you just get tunnel vision, You don't get to... If I'm editing a video for 2 weeks and every day I can check in on the grade and make little tweaks to it, because this was just the first pass, then by the time I get to the time to color grade it, I've gotten to look at it for a couple of weeks. I know I like it, and I've resolved all the issues that stand out to me the first time that I see it. I've gotten, every day, I've gotten 20, 15 or 20 times the first time seeing it, rather than just, all right, it's all done, drop it into Resolve, and then color grade it, and then it's out, which wouldn't be the case for a large project. Resolve would take you a while, but this is a different way that I just like. Works for me, and I hope that helped you guys. You don't have to get Red Giant Suite. I have no affiliation with them, but I've been using them for years, and I really like it. It really improves my color grades inside of here, so check it out if you're interested. I hope that this helped you figure out how to color grade a little bit. And again, it's just a sit-in. I need to move forward now with editing all kinds of other stuff. So take care, and I hope to catch you on the next one, guys. Peace.
We offer a lifetime residential warranty on our coatings. This protects against chipping, peeling, delamination, even yellowing and fading. So if anything ever happens to your project within the lifetime of it, just call us back and we'll come out and fix it for free.
Part of my garage slab extends outside the garage. It has been exposed to the elements for 2.5 years, including sun, and I get a lot of afternoon sun. And when that door is up, that would be a line of demarcation that you would be able to see if there was any effects from the UV, and there's none. Literally, it looks the same. Door up, door down.